Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Motherland on March 14th, 2025. I hope you all are doing well. I know a lot of things are going on in this world. This world is changing, but it's for our good and it's for a purpose. And just to do my usual intro, Exploring the Motherland is a show created for the sole purpose of promoting the message of Quest to Unite Africa. And if this is your first time coming here, you are wondering what is the message of Quest to Unite Africa. The message of Quest to Unite Africa, or mission, is to create economic development and critical infrastructure for the African diaspora and the African continent as a whole. We do this through strategic partnerships in our four main areas. That would be technological innovation, business, medicine, and cultural engagement. The purpose of Exploring the Motherland is to give you the latest news developments that convey why Quest to Unite Africa is needed and our overall mission. So without further ado, let's just start this thing. Zimbabwe seeks BRICS membership and awaits response. Zimbabwe has officially submitted its application to join BRICS. The country's foreign minister, Aman Marura, announced during a visit to Moscow on Thursday, speaking alongside Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at a news conference. Marura emphasized Zimbabwe's commitment to meeting BRICS membership's requirement. Quotes, BRICS is one of the most important platforms for economic cooperation that is based on principles of mutual respect and sovereignty, equality of nations, basically the antithesis of Western colonialism and imperialism. Zimbabwe would benefit from any system that respects these key principles of human interaction and human progress, and BRICS is one of them. And I will put the article and all the videos in the chat.
Zimbabwe has officially submitted its application to join BRICS, the country's foreign minister announced during a visit in Moscow on Thursday. Speaking alongside Russian foreign minister, he emphasized Zimbabwe's commitment to meet BRICS membership requirements.
BRICS is one of the most important platforms for economic cooperation that is based on principles of mutual respect and sovereign equality of nations. Therefore, Zimbabwe would benefit from any system that respects these key principles of human interaction and human progress, and BRICS is one of them. And we are in the process of making sure that we meet the required conditions by BRICS, and of course, we are applying. We'll be waiting for a reply that is according to the consensus that will be in BRICS.
The BRICS bloc, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has been expanding its influence, with several nations expressing interest in joining.
Again, strategic relationships and partnerships that are based in respect and sovereignty. Again, as I titled this is episode 33, Exploring the Motherland, the Shifting of Global Relations. The continent of Africa is now shifting its relationship with the West, which has been nothing but colonialism, brutality, barbarism, and just overall just strong arming and lack of respect for African leaders, African sovereignty, and just, the pursuit of their own economic freedom and their right to rule their own country. Next video.
What if Zimbabwe could tap into the massive economic power of BRICS, a group that includes some of the world's biggest emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, a group that controls over 30% of the global economy and is expanding its influence faster than ever. But here's the big question: will Zimbabwe be allowed to join? Or will it be left waiting at the door while others take advantage of BRICS' growing economic power? Zimbabwe's Foreign Minister, Amon Murwira, just landed in Moscow for high-level talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And while many topics were on the table, one stood out: Zimbabwe's application to join BRICS. So what does this visit mean? Will Zimbabwe secure a spot in the world's fastest-growing economic bloc? And how could this change the country's future? Let's find out. Zimbabwe and Russia have a long-standing relationship. From political support to economic partnerships, the two nations have always had each other's backs. But this meeting in Moscow wasn't just about maintaining old ties. It was about building something bigger. During the press conference, Lavrov made it clear: Russia and Zimbabwe are working to expand trade and economic cooperation. And we're not just talking about basic trade deals. Lavrov highlighted geological exploration, energy, including nuclear, agriculture, space technology, and IT, as key areas for collaboration. Russia is even offering more educational opportunities for Zimbabwean students, currently granting 125 scholarships per year, with plans to increase this number. This is not just diplomacy, this is deepening ties in a way that could pave Zimbabwe's way into BRICS. But here's the reality: just having strong ties with Russia doesn't guarantee Zimbabwe's entry into BRICS. The country still needs the approval of all BRICS members, and that could be a challenge. While Zimbabwe is focused on BRICS, Russia is working on something even bigger: strengthening its influence in Africa. Lavrov announced that the third Russia-Africa summit will take place in 2026, bringing together African leaders and Russian officials to discuss economic partnerships, infrastructure development, and trade expansion. These summits have become critical platforms for Russia to deepen its ties with Africa, offering African nations alternative investment opportunities outside Western influence. Before that, the second Ministerial Russia-Africa Partnership Forum is set for 2025, to be held in an African country yet to be announced. This forum is expected to lay the groundwork for major economic agreements, covering everything from energy projects to military cooperation. Russia has been actively increasing its presence across the continent, signing agreements on natural resource development, security partnerships, and technological collaborations. This shows one thing: BRICS is looking at Africa, and Russia is leading that charge. The continent has become a key battleground for global influence, with the West, China, and now Russia all competing for strategic partnerships. If Zimbabwe gets into BRICS, it won't be alone. Other African nations, including Algeria, Nigeria, and Egypt, have also expressed interest in joining BRICS, seeing the bloc as an alternative to traditional Western financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank, which have long dictated economic policies in Africa. For BRICS, expanding into Africa means gaining access to critical natural resources, new markets, and stronger diplomatic influence. But the question remains: will BRICS open its doors to more African nations? Or will it remain exclusive, selecting only the most strategically beneficial members? For Zimbabwe, this means one thing: it needs to prove it's a valuable addition to BRICS. It must showcase its economic potential, political stability.
All right, you can watch the rest of that video. Yeah, this is an alternative to the IMF and the World Bank, who have been putting our brothers and sisters in the continent's nations in, perpetual debt that they can't pay back, giving them loans with crazy interest that can never be paid back. And when they take these loans, they don't have the infrastructure or the economic savvy to pay them back. It's basically like akin to us who have been taking college loans and debt And that's kind of funny how the Department of Education has been, slashed, but that's not the purview of this show. But I'm just trying to make an analogy because, they've been, basically, what's the word, predatory with their financial access of the continent of Africa and putting them in perpetual debt. And that would be the West that I'm talking about, the IMF Bank and the World Bank. And, Russia continues to beat the West in creating strategic partnerships that foster economic growth and development. BRICS is an opportunity for African countries to escape economic oppression, as I said before, like the IMF and the World Bank, and other sanctions or any Western policies that punish those who seek independence of them. Furthermore, BRICS presents a better option and template to seek economic freedom needed to help build critical infrastructure. As you heard, one of our main areas at Quest Unite Africa is technological innovation, IT, and access to other, critical infrastructure initiatives that will help build Africa up, the African continent up, because again, a lot of what the West does is they'll say, yes, sure, we'll build this for you, but it's only for our benefit, and we won't give you any type of training or education with your infrastructure. So, you'll never be able to, use it to its full potential. We'll be the ones who are basically taskmasters over this infrastructure, so they never really get any independence. So I believe a lot of African nations will be seeking BRICS, or even better, African nations will start to develop their own economic blocs and partnerships and groups like the Alliance of Sahel States. Okay, next article. South Africa rejects megaphone diplomacy with us, basically, with us. What am I saying? The United States, the US, abbreviated. And I will briefly read some of the article, and then I'll put it in the chat. The South African government has said it will not take part in counterproductive megaphone diplomacy, basically going back and forth via social media and the internet with Trump, following a fresh social media post by U.S. President Donald Trump repeating his claim that Pretoria was confiscating land. Trump extended his invitation to relocate those seeking to flee South Africa for reasons of safety to all farmers and offered them citizenship. South Africa has previously said that Trump has misunderstood the country's new land exploration act, but it has already led to the U.S. president freezing financial aid to the country. Link in the chat to this article, and I will play the video.
U.S. President Donald Trump says farmers from South Africa will be offered a rapid pathway to American citizenship following his executive order that pauses all federal aid to South Africa. This as Trump and Elon Musk have criticized South African officials for a new law they argue discriminates against white farmers. The F.W. de Klerk Foundation expressed shock and said farmers are being used for cheap politicking. Let's unpack this with international relations expert Dr. Kingsley Makubela. Dr. Kingsley, are farmers in South Africa being utilized and essentialized for cheap politicking on issues that perhaps surreptitiously have got nothing to do with them at all?
Absolutely, Oliver. The statements that are coming from Washington are indicative of the weaknesses that we're seeing within the global system, and particularly within our diplomatic system in our interaction with the Americans. These things have been building, and I don't think as a country we prepared ourselves for better engagement with the Trump administration. Now, when these pronouncements are coming up, that's why you're seeing a lot of people making comments, even within the ruling party, within government. Sometimes you get confused between people who are speaking as party leaders and those who are speaking as government. It's because there was never a strategy as to how should a country engage with the Trump administration. And this preparation should have been done way before the elections.
But can you predict an unpredictable administration that seemingly changes its position on several issues depending on the mood the president is when he wakes up in the morning? I can imagine one would have to prepare for an administration coming in, especially if they're an important partner in your trade and diplomatic relations. But if you can't predict the behavior of that administration, how do you begin to prepare for it?
You see, look at the Europeans, for instance, Oliver. They better prepare themselves for the engagement. And once Trump started to make certain pronouncements, they dispatched a delegation of Macron and later on Stammer to go and engage with Trump. And they never fell into the trap of exchanging insult with Trump. I mean, there are things that Trump said during Macron and during Stammer's visit that you would have expected the UK and France to have responded. But they knew the beast they were dealing with, and they were able to handle that within the parameters of this beast they are dealing with. Do we have a similar approach? You know, in diplomacy, you must do constant review of key strategic countries and be able to predict the changes and develop strategies of how to mitigate possible fallout. The fortunate thing, Oliver, is that this is the second coming of Donald Trump. So we knew what kind of character he is. We've seen his pronouncements even during the campaigns. We should have better prepared, in my own view.
Yeah. So what now, given that our response to this would be reactionary in its nature rather than proactive in determining the texture and tone of our engagements with the US? What are some of the reactionary instruments that the diplomatic community in South Africa can take a look at in making use of going forward, engaging with the US?
I think part of this is to really look at the overall policy framework or strategic framework that we have in government towards the United States. How do we deal with the United States and the Europeans? I don't think that strategy is quite coherent because it's quite clear we've been caught napping. And I think the other thing, you know, you find the sentiment, Oliver, that we can send any diplomat. I think it was a big mistake that we sent Rasul to the US, because Rasul has been highly involved on an issue that it unites the Democrats and the Republicans. So that's why they are isolating him. I have projected this earlier, that he will remain isolated and there won't be strategic engagement with the ambassador. And that's where we are losing out.
Yeah. So given that Keir Starmer as well as Emmanuel Macron had taken initiative to visit US President Donald Trump to iron out some of the issues, although the visit of Keir Starmer went a little bit better than the visit of Emmanuel Macron on the one hand, should President Ramaphosa perhaps ferry to Washington himself to lead these conversations and not leave it up to the DIRCO instruments that we have?
You know, during the State of the Nation, the president said he's going to send envoys. And these envoys, we've seen envoys that are coming from civil society and political parties that are going there. He hasn't clearly defined what is the mission of these envoys. These envoys haven't been constituted. Meanwhile, the situation on the ground in the United States is moving rather rapidly fast. I think that has been overtaken by events. And I don't know if the outreach program of the G7, they're going to invite South Africa as they used to, because they're having this engagement in Canada very soon. The question is, would South Africa be invited to go there so that South Africa can engage at that level of leaders around these issues?
Yeah. Dr. Kingsley Makubele, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. It's always an honor and privilege to speak to you on this. Dr. Kingsley Makubele is an international relations expert.
US President Donald Trump has launched his latest broadside against South Africa in a social media post directly offering South African farmers and their families safe refuge in the USA and a path to citizenship. Trump posted to Truth Social that South Africa was being terrible to long-time farmers in the country. He again erroneously stated that their land and farms were being confiscated, pushing a misinformed narrative about the country's land expropriation laws. SABC News correspondent Sharon Bryce-Beast joins us now for more on this conversation. Sharon, thank you so much for your time this evening. It never seems to end, right? First, we heard that executive order from US President Donald Trump about the US aid. Yesterday, it was another executive order when it comes to climate change. And now this latest one.
Yeah, and we're chasing here, Mbali, a lot of misinformation. And so our role as journalists is also to repudiate sometimes what is emanating from the White House, no less the President of the United States. And of course, one of his most senior advisors in the vein of the South African-born billionaire Elon Musk, right? So let's go through what President Trump has said in this latest attack on South Africa, misinformed as it might be. Quote, South Africa is being terrible to longtime farmers in the country. They're confiscating their land and farms, and much worse than that. A bad place to be right now, and we are stopping all federal funding. Of course, that's not new. That emanated from the executive order he signed in February in Bali. And he continues to go a step further. Any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited into the United States with a rapid pathway to citizenship. That process, he says, will begin immediately. And of course, now as journalists, we are trying to figure out why is it that suddenly out of the blue, right, he's dealing with the war in Ukraine, he's dealing with tariffs against Canada, he's dealing with a plethora of issues on the domestic frontier in the United States. Why suddenly out of the blue is Donald Trump tweeting or texting on social media about South Africa? And one can only, point to the dots that we see on social media from the likes of Elon Musk. I'll give you two examples of posts that we woke up to this morning as well from Elon Musk in Bali. Quote, Starlink is not allowed to operate in South Africa, quote, because I am not black. This is what Elon Musk has said in terms of his endeavor to have operations, to have a license for Starlink in South Africa. Of course, you'll recall he met with President Ramaphosa in New York in September last year, where initial discussions started as to his ability to invest in South Africa, not just in terms of Starlink, but also his Tesla operations, SpaceX operations, and other avenues of exploration in terms of business deals.
I'll just pause and then to chime in. Now you see Trump is purposely giving a certain group pathway, fast pathway to access to coming to the U.S., all while, cutting off our brothers and sisters coming to America and excluding them from visa, programs and fast pathways to citizenship. I just want us all to pay attention. The silent dog whistle, but it's not so silent with this, guy. He's just bloviates and is just very aggressive, and he just lacks tact and humility with his rhetoric and his message. But it is an overall representation of the people here in America and Americans as a whole. So we see Trump actively castigating or, basically trying to punish South Africa because they have a land law that helps restore order and helps restore economic progression for, let's just say it, blacks in Africa that are the majority of the country, instead of, allowing the status quo of Western domination to keep going on. And he obviously is trying to uphold that, but soon South Africans and Africa as a whole is just not going to have it.
we garnered from the South African position after that engagement that it was a very positive discussion. They explained South Africa's BEE laws in terms of foreign ownership in South Africa, the 30% that needs to go to previously disadvantaged groups in South Africa. And Elon Musk, according to Vincent Magwenya from the presidency, raised concern that it might be setting a precedent in terms of his Starlink operations in other jurisdictions. But essentially, you know, the conversation was going to continue. They left it on a very positive note. And then, of course, everything devolved into social media and posts on X. Another thing, Mbali, that Elon Musk tweeted about earlier this week in relation to South Africa on Tuesday is, quote, "I grew up as English in South Africa," he says, "not Afrikaans, and consider myself to be an American, simply an American. That said, what's happening in South Africa is deeply wrong, not what President Nelson Mandela intended at all." So one then begins to sort of connect the dots and say Donald Trump is probably tweeting or posting to Truth Social as a result of the influence and the aspersions being cast on South Africa by no less than Elon Musk. That is the only line that we can draw here. And of course, we've also subsequently heard from Vincent Magwenya in the South African presidency. I'm just pulling up a message he sent me earlier, Mbali, and he said, "We are not going to partake in counterproductive megaphone diplomacy. We remain committed to building a mutually beneficial bilateral trade, political, and diplomatic relationship with the United States, in particular the Trump administration. Obviously, it must be a relationship that is based on mutual respect and the respect for our independence and sovereignty. And of course, as you have seen the diplomacy, you know, this megaphone diplomacy on social media play itself out, that has not been happening. South Africa's sovereignty and independence is not being respected in the vein in which these messages are being sent, particularly not using diplomatic channels, but choosing instead to use social media as a way of communicating their position.
And Sharon, as we continue to join, these dots, it seems as if, they are placing mounting pressure on the South African government, but simply placing pressure, it seems, due to the country's BEE laws.
Yeah, and one begins to wonder what the strategy is. Is this about changing South Africa's BEE laws, but using misinformation to make that point? I mean, surely if you are serious about addressing a problem, you want a fact-based discussion so that you can really sort of have building blocks based on, clear evidence, quantitative research, qualitative research. What you are getting here are emotional outbursts that are not based in fact. And then, journalists are expected to chase their tails here in terms of trying to figure out what this might mean. As you well know, there is a long-standing issue between South Africa in terms of South Africa's foreign policy positions, be that in relation to its relationship with Russia, particularly in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, or South Africa's action against Israel at the International Court of Justice, right? Alleging that Israel is in violation of the Genocide Convention in terms of its prosecution of its military offensive in Gaza. So one begins to then understand that might be the genesis, in part with the positions of Elon Musk, as to why this position has been taken, right? They cast aspersion of the fact that South Africa had meetings with Hamas, but what are you seeing in the United States today?
All right, you can watch the rest of the video because he's talking about something out of the scope of the show, but nonetheless, great information and great commentary. And the United States still exudes the hubris of them being the most economic dominant and influential country in the world. However, things are shifting and they are being cut off from strategic partnerships due to terrible diplomatic relations. As a result, there will be a time where African countries completely cut ties with America. In addition, they will start cutting off resources and strategic minerals vital to the United States' existence. South Africa will be the forerunners of this movement, I believe, and bargaining with Trump is a waste of time. And this is, Trump using the internet and using social media as a channel of, diplomacy, or even trying to, pass information is just, terrible cultural engagement, lack of respect for South Africa, the government, its laws, and he continues to, for lack of a better term, just try to be a bully and tries to, domineer or dominate the conversation and with his own ideologies, basically, WS, if you all can't read between the lines of what WS is, you know what I'm talking about, supremacy, the old ideologies of the West. He's trying to push them onto South Africa and the government, and eventually they're not going to have it. And as I said before, the shifting of global relationships. In the next story, I believe, you'll see how Trump is actively giving out diplomatic ties to specific groups while excluding other specific groups. And it's going to come back and bite the US and the West as a whole in the butt. Trump says US will sell 5 million gold card to wealthy foreigners. Let me put the article in here. Link to the article. I will read it briefly. Trump says U.S. will sell 5 million gold card to wealthy foreigners. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday the U.S. would sell a gold card to wealthy foreigners. Gee, I wonder what wealthy foreigners he's talking about, because, he, again, like I said, some of this is basically covert language to exclude our brothers and sisters on the continent, and even us, pretty soon, giving them the right to live and work in the U.S. and offering a path to citizenship in exchange for $5 million. We're going to be selling a gold card, Trump said from the Oval Office. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card for about $5 million, and it's going to give you a green card, privileges, plus it's going to give you a route to citizenship, and wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card, and it's going to be great.
Donald Trump came up with an idea for people who want to go live in America permanently or become American citizen. He says he's opening the door to the United States of America for people who have $5 million cash. If you have $5 million, you present it to the government of the United States of America. They will give you a golden route to becoming American citizen. So right away, no waiting period. You become American citizen.
We're going to be doing something else that's going to be very, very good. We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship, and wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy.
We all know that the majority of millionaires in the world are not Africans or black. Okay, let's hear what this very interesting person has to say. His name is Shahid Bolsen. He had a comment to make about the $5 million. Let's watch.
So-called gold card program, visa program. You've heard about this? He's offering residency and a path to citizenship for $5 million. This is not an immigration policy, it's a fire sale. Citizenship is just another product on the shelf. I mean, why not tweak that program? Allow Americans to sell their citizenship for $5 million.
Oh,
now, that makes sense. Let struggling Americans get paid and move out of that country with their newfound millions.
Wow, let struggling Americans take the 5 million and move out the country with the 5 million. Instead of giving random people from I don't know where citizenship worth $5 million, how about you allow the struggling Americans, but clearly don't benefit from being American, the $5 million so they can move out the country? Let's continue.
That's a program I could get behind. Imagine if, for instance, just say 10% of African Americans could sell their citizenship for $5 million each. That's roughly 5 million new millionaires.
Wow. 10% of African Americans selling their citizenship for $5 million. So that's about 5 million new millionaires. That's interesting, isn't it? Wow, let's go.
$25 trillion between them. You can get a Dominican citizenship for an investment of just $100,000. You could make the Dominican Republic $25 trillion richer overnight. You know, I'm just saying African Americans because they have the most obvious reasons for being interested in selling their citizenship, since they don't get much out of it in the first place. But if you offered a program like that in reality, well, I think that you'd see that country empty out. I mean, ask yourself, if you're an American, what would you rather have? American citizenship or $5 million? $5 million and the opportunity to get citizenship elsewhere and have all the safety and all the security that comes with being that rich. Retaining your citizenship is never going to secure for you that kind of wealth. It's never going to secure that kind of wealth for you. It's never going to give you that kind of freedom, and it's never going to give you that kind of security. And I think you know it. I think you ought to demand the right to sell your citizenship, since he's already treating it like a product, like an asset that can be bought and sold. So why can't the people who already possess that asset, who already have that product, why can't they sell it? Isn't that capitalism? Isn't that the free market? Forget about selling it. If American citizenship is worth $5 million, well, shouldn't we be entitled to a refund? I mean, I don't know about you, but I sure never got $5 million worth of value from my citizenship. Did you? Well, I think the government ought to buy it back, just like corporations, you know, with their share buybacks and so on. You can have it. Give me that $5 million and we'll be on our way. Who wouldn't go for that deal? Why, you see that whole country depopulated within days.
Fellas, this is absolutely profound. I mean, $5 million for your citizenship. How many African Americans will be ready to leave the country for $5 million? I bet you for less than that. Because already you find a lot of African Americans wanting to go find life elsewhere. You know, you have a lot of people going to Brazil, African Americans, a lot of African Americans going to Ghana. Okay, some of them are running away from African American women because they don't think they are. Anyway, that's the subject for another day. Sorry, I'm just kidding. Okay, don't come for me. I'm just kidding. Anyway, $5 million for your citizenship. So Donald Trump came up with this idea saying $5 million, you get American citizenship. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like the paradise. $5 million for American citizenship. If you want to come to the United States of America, don't come like people from shithole countries. Bring money. You know, bring money and we're going to give you a golden route to citizenship. There are many ways to become American in America. One of
Again, you can follow this brother Zach's channel. It's very informational. I've been listening to Trump too much. Has a lot of information and it's great. And, you know, he jokes sometimes, you know, but, you know, he basically said what I wanted to say, but, you know, I'm not going to use profanity, but specifically Trump doesn't want people from a specific region and specific countries with this initiative. And again, like I said, it's a dog whistle for making America white again. Let me just say it. That's exactly what he's trying to do. And that gentleman's commentary was interesting because that's something we all should think about. I'm not saying we're going to sell our, you know, our citizenship is going to be, you know, we're going to be sell our citizenship and that's our way out of here, because I don't believe that. And I know most of you know what's going to happen, and most of you know exactly in the book that reigns supreme and has the truth, that we will leave here with substance. So it's just something to think about. And I'll continue the video.
of them includes marrying an American and waiting. The other one includes going to the army, being deployed in Ukraine as a mercenary, or Afghanistan, you know, shoot on innocent people. I'm just kidding. Then maybe you're going to get your American citizenship if you come back alive. If you come back alive. That is one of the possibilities that was given to me. Anyway, I'm not commenting on that right now. The other opportunity is what Donald Trump is offering you. $5 million American dollars and you can become American. How do you feel about that? Well, the message was not for Africans, clearly not, or South Americans. The message was for a specific group of people because they are the most millionaires. Okay? Now, wouldn't an African American take this opportunity? 5 million. Just give them $5 million. Let them leave. They want to leave already for many reasons. I mean, being African American in America, it doesn't give you a lot of benefits. I'm sorry. Let me tell you something. We, from our experience, have seen that white people in America treat black Africans better than they treat African Americans. I've seen that myself several times. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a flux or a mistake or a change. I was asked, are you African American or African? When I say I'm African, oh, really? Which country? The tone changed. African Americans are going through the most. You can't even drive a nice car. You drive in a nice car, you get stopped by the police. Your hands on the wheels. Put your hands where I can see them. Driver's license. Don't touch your head. Yeah. You already know.
Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Put your hands out to the side. Hands out to the side. Don't move. Don't move.
From afar, you just look like that person. That's it. $5 million. Wouldn't you take $5 million? I mean, imagine you come to Africa. $5 million, my brother. You know what you can do with $5 million in a country like Uganda? $5 million in a country like Congo. $5 million in Angola. No, maybe not Angola. Angola is one of the most expensive countries in the world, if not the most expensive country. It's very expensive. Everything is super expensive. You don't want to go to Angola like that. I love them. They're very composed human being. I like them, but they have a lot of money through diamonds, so it's very expensive. Anyway, with $5 million, you can have a life in Ghana, my brother. You buy plot, big land for $2,500. Yes, $2,500. How much is that in rands? Put in South African rand. How much is that in Nigerian naira? Okay, remove the Nigerian naira. I'm just kidding. Okay, Ugandan shilling and Kenyan shillings. My man, 5 million, 2,500, you buy plot. Then you start building a villa. You build a massive mansion. You have a life. Mansion made out of bricks, not those woods you have in America that cost you $1 million. Woods, $1 million? Come on. You have a beautiful life. Trust me. Okay, seriously. In Africa, you $5 million, you have a life. You're a boss. You are a boss for at least 30 years if you mismanage the money. So if you manage the money well, you probably boss forever. It's also depending on your taste and your whatever thing that you like. I mean, don't just go crazy, looking to have 9 wives and stuff. Then you're going to lose it all. But you can actually build multiple houses with $5 million. No, just $500,000. You can invest in multiple businesses. You can create multiple organizations that could set you for life. $5 million, you won't pay tax for $5 million in Africa. In most African countries, you can negotiate with most African countries, not all. You can negotiate your tax. Okay, you can say, listen, I can't pay 49%. In America, when you have 5 million, you actually don't have 5 million. You have 5 million minus 50% because 50% goes to tax, or almost 50%. In Africa, it's not the case. So everything is in Africa. Africa still needs things done. So yes, let me know how you feel about this.
All right, that's a great video, great insight. Follow that, brother. And again, the cultural engagement between us, Zach understands how we live here in America and how, it would be better for us to be out of here. And that's what's going to happen. I saw someone's comment earlier that didn't agree with me. I guess I triggered someone. That's funny. But yeah, regardless, America's, day by day telling the diaspora, we don't want you here. So, you could just create up your own lies and, think that you think that you have sovereignty in America or you have a right to this land, while us with sense will, get out of here and build with our brothers and sisters on the continent as it was always foretold. And as I wrote my notes here, let me get them. Trump continues to alienate people within the United States on the basis of class and race. This whole initiative is a dog whistle for his voter base to continue to discriminate against foreigners, especially African people and the diaspora. This will fail as America's political influence and economy continues to plummet. Next article, West African bloc members call for a breakaway states to return. And Ghana's president hit ECOWAS with the Ellis pump fake, the Jordan pump fake. I'll explain later, but let me put the article in here and let me read it. West African bloc member calls for breakaway states to return. Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama and his Ivorian counterpart Artora have called on Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to rejoin West African Economic Bloc ECOWAS. The three countries officially left the grouping earlier this year after military coups strained their relations. Addressing a joint news conference in Abidjan, the capital of Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast in English, on Wednesday, visiting President Mohamed volunteered to serve as a bridge between ECOWAS and the three Sahel states. I will offer myself as a bridge between ECOWAS and the three countries and see how we can work with them so that they not only remain within our sub-region, but also do the transition to constitutional democracy, he said. That's what he said. And I will put this video in the chat.
To use your meetings with these brotherly countries to convince them to stay in ECOWAS. Will this actually yield any results? Less than 4 months after his re-election as head of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama chose Abidjan for his third official visit to the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire. The Ghanaian president came to express his friendship towards President Ouattara. His counterpart took advantage of this visit to discuss several current issues concerning the West African sub-region, the ECOWAS area, with the withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. President Ouattara wants to count on his Ghanaian counterpart for the return of these three countries to ECOWAS. We trust you, Mr. President. To use your meetings with these brotherly countries to convince them to stay in ECOWAS. As it is in the interest of the people of West Africa. I would also like to appeal to the AES countries, saying that we are 15, not 13. So I truly hope that President Mahama's appeal will be heard by these three brotherly countries, two of which are neighbors of Côte d'Ivoire, so that we can continue together within ECOWAS. The Ghanaian president, on the other hand, acknowledges that if Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger decided to withdraw from ECOWAS, it is a clear indication that there are underlying dysfunctions within the organization that need to be addressed. He recognizes that these countries did not take such a drastic step lightly, but rather as a response to structural issues, governance concerns, and dissatisfaction with ECOWAS' handling of regional affairs. However, John Dramani Mahama remains optimistic about the possibility of bringing these nations back into the fold. He believes that through open dialogue, mutual understanding, and necessary reforms within ECOWAS, the concerns of these nations can be addressed, fostering an environment where they feel valued and willing to rejoin the regional bloc.
Never say never. I believe that there's always a possibility to be able to reassure them that, ECOWAS is a committee of nations that covers our entire sub-region, and ECOWAS is beneficial to all our countries. They are better as part of the 15 than only as 3 countries. And so I do think that we must maintain continuous engagement with them, and we just remain hopeful that eventually we should be able to surmount the differences. There's more that unites us than what divides us in terms of trade, in terms of our people. There are many people from the 3 countries residing in our countries, in Cote d'Ivoire and in Ghana. We have Malians, we have Nigerians, we have Burkinabes, and our ethnic groups even straddle the borders. And so there's more that unites us than divides us. And so we're hopeful that, they'll realize that being part of 15 is better than being part of 3.
What are your thoughts about this development? Please share them with us in the comments section, and also consider subscribing to our channel for more.
Okay, as my note says, ECOWAS lost its influence in West Africa due to failed cultural engagement. That's the overall theme of this show. Cultural engagement is just basically coming together, learning people's culture, respecting people's sovereignty, creating initiatives and relationships based on what that country values, and basically figuring out what the people want and need to make their lives better. Complete antithesis or opposite of what America does. And furthermore, it failed on its economic development promises and just became a vessel for foreign political interest. I do not believe the Ghanaian president can change their minds of the AES, despite John Mahama's good diplomatic relationships with Traore. Their good relations are different than dealing with ECOWAS. The Ivorian president still wants to have relations with the French regardless, so he is pressuring the Ghanaian president's good relationships with the AES countries to bring them back to ECOWAS. But the next video and article, you'll see that the Ghanaian president respects the AES and what they're doing, and believe that they can coexist, and they don't have to join ECOWAS, and that they can coexist and they can still do trade with the AES. All right. Ghanaian president engages Burkina Faso junta leaders in high-level talks on regional stability. Let me get the link for this. Give me 1 second. And the article reads, President John Mahama has announced plans to strengthen economic cooperation between Ghana and Burkina Faso, with discussions underway to establish a direct flight between Accra and Ouagadougou. Speaking after a meeting with Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore, President Mahama revealed that the Ghanaian airline is set to operate daily flights between the two capitals, aiming to enhance connectivity and facilitate trade. We discussed a trade between our two countries, particularly in agriculture products, and how we can ease the process for exporters and importers. According to him, plans are underway to increase Ghana's electricity exports to Burkina Faso, alongside enhancing the transit corridor for petroleum products. He revealed that Burkina Faso recently acquired a fuel storage terminal, and both countries are considering extending Ghana's existing pipeline from Bolgatanga to Ouagadougou to streamline fuel and diesel supplies.
This is a map of Burkina Faso, and it shares borders with Mali here, Niger here, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire, meaning Burkina Faso is a landlocked nation with no direct access to the sea. And this is a daily challenge. Today, we are exploring a major decision that could change the game for Burkina Faso's energy future. So, in today's video, we are going to talk about why Burkina Faso needed to make a big energy move and how its national oil company, Sonap High, is investing over $70 million in a storage terminal in Ghana. Let's break it down in a simple terms. But before we start everything, Please don't forget to like the video and also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you very much for your liking. Now, let's dive into it. Burkina Faso does not have its own seaport. This means it depends on neighboring coastal countries to import fuel. When you rely on others for something as important as energy, you are at a mercy of high cost and unpredictable supply routes. A delay or disruption, maybe because of bad weather, political issues, or global market changes, can create huge problems at home. So, why does Burkina Faso really need this investment? Let me put it simpler. Fuel is the bloodline of every country's economy. Without a steady, affordable supply of energy, everything stops. Factories can't run, transportations get delayed, and everyday life becomes much harder. Consider this: if fuel prices rise or supplies run low, it affects everyone, from the bus driver to the factory worker. That is why having direct control over fuel storage and supply is so important. Now, let's look at some of the key industries that depend on fuel in Burkina Faso. Cement factories. Large plants like Sem Faso and Sem Meta uses enormous amount of fuel to power heavy machinery. Cement is critical for building roads, bridges, and homes. So without enough fuel, construction slows down or even stops. Factories such as Kosam Dairy need steady energy to run equipment that processes and stores milk. Without a reliable power source, their products can spoil, affecting both businesses and consumers. Burkina Faso is again known for its mining, including gold extraction. Mines like Mana Gold and Yuga Gold use fuel to run drilling machines and transport oil. When energy supply is unstable, mining operations face shutdowns that can cost millions. In all these cases, energy isn't just another expense. In fact, it is essential for survival and growth. Now, let's talk about the big news. Sonap High has acquired the Tema multipurpose terminal in Ghana. This investment is a carefully planned step to strengthen Burkina Faso's energy independence. The terminal's location in Tema makes it easier to receive petroleum products from several suppliers' countries, and by owning its own storage facility, Burkina Faso can cut down on the expensive fees it pays to third parties for storage. Again, with direct control over storage, the country is less vulnerable to disruptions in the supply chain. Lastly, this move will help protect Burkina Faso from sudden price spikes and supply storage due to global market changes. So, this investment in Ghana is part of a larger nationwide plan to modernize Burkina Faso's energy infrastructure. Just a few months ago, an ultra-modern depot with a capacity of 104,000 cubic meters was opened in Penny, which is more than 300 kilometers from Ouagadougou, Burkina's capital. Both projects aim to make energy supply more stable, efficient, and cost-effective for the entire country. Let's simplify it even further. Imagine you run a small business and you depend on a supplier for all your materials. If that supplier suddenly increases their prices or can't deliver on time, your business suffers. Now, what if you could secure your own warehouse and have direct contracts with several suppliers? You would have more control, lower cost, and fewer disruptions. That's exactly what Burkina Faso is doing with this terminal. By investing in its own storage infrastructure, the country is taking control of its fuel supply. This means more stability for factories, businesses, and everyday people. So this is about securing a future where industries can thrive. When factories have a reliable supply of energy, they can operate smoothly, create jobs, and help boost the economy. For a country like Burkina Faso, every improvement in energy security translates into better opportunities for its people. In today's fast-changing world, energy isn't just about keeping the lights on. It's the foundation of economic growth and stability. Burkina Faso's bold move shows that even a small landlocked country can take big steps to secure its future. What do you think about this strategic investment? Do you believe it could help Burkina Faso's industries and improve everyday life?
All right. I had another video pertaining to the other, explaining the visit with President Ibrahim Traore and the Ghanaian president, but the person got rid of the link like literally before I, was about to start the show. But I believe the other two videos will pretty much go into detail with that. And my comments here is President Mahama is a great diplomat and is an example of how African leaders need to start making mutual and beneficial partnerships with their African brothers. He continues to believe that unity and brotherhood is the key to pushing Africa forward. But despite being in ECOWAS, I believe pretty soon he will be convinced to leave the bloc. Furthermore, I can see him being convinced by Ibrahim Traore to join the AES. I believe Traore's willingness to talk and develop business relations with Mahama signifies that possibility. With him buying that terminal in Ghana, you see that even though Ghana, for the time being, it is in ECOWAS, Ibrahim Traore trusts the Ghanaian president enough to still do business with him. And, they're not mutually exclusive. Ghana will still do trade and still do, have good diplomatic relationships with Burkina Faso, regardless of their ECOWAS status. But I believe pretty soon he will be forced to make a choice. And I believe he'll slowly, or, doesn't matter how fast it will happen, that he will leave and exit ECOWAS and be shown that it's not really an effective bloc. And as Brother ASAP said, it's a pathway to neocolonialization. Okay. Ghana attempts to restore ties between regional bloc and breakaway states. And the article in the chat. And the article reads, or I just didn't put this article in my notes, so whatever, we'll do it live. Bill O'Reilly reference, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama has paid visits to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger for bilateral talks as a part of efforts to convince the leaders of the three neighboring countries to reconsider their exit from the Western African bloc. The tour, which began on Saturday, came just days after Mahama announced during a visit to Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, that he will be a bridge between the Economic Community of West African, ECOWAS. I'm not going to say that all. We've discussed issues of mutual interest. We've discussed the issue of AES of the Sahel states and ECOWAS. I've got a new perspective about the concern that three countries have respect of their relationship with ECOWAS, he said on Monday, wrapping up his trip as a joint press conference with Burkinabe transitional leader Ibrahim Traore. I think there is a breakdown of trust among the leadership. It will take time to rebuild it, but we have to work on it so that we restore a trust and confidence in each other so that we can work together.
Let us now shift to West Africa, where a new peacemaker is stepping in to mediate between the Sahel juntas and the regional bloc ECOWAS. Ghana's President John Mahama embarked on a crucial diplomatic mission to Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso over the weekend, seeking to rebuild dialogue and ease tensions between ECOWAS and the junta-ruled West African countries that exited the regional bloc earlier this year. His first stop was Mali on Saturday, where he held talks with the Malian president, Assimi Goïta, on economic and security issues, as well as regional tensions. Now, after this, Mahama then headed to Niger on Sunday, where he held closed-doors discussions with General Abdurrahmane Chiani on ways to improve regional security and trade. He then concluded his tour in Burkina Faso on Monday, meeting with Captain Ibrahim Traore to discuss bilateral ties as well as trust building between ECOWAS and the Sahel states. The three Sahel states, which experienced military coups between 2020 and 2023, formally left the Economic Community of West African States, or the ECOWAS, on the 29th of January, criticizing the bloc's subservience to former colonial powers such as France and its incapacity to support their counter-terrorism efforts. Now, several mediation efforts by Togo and Senegal tried to prevent this split in the region. However, the military regime said that their departure was, quote unquote, irreversible. Since deciding to leave the bloc, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have strengthened their ties by forming another regional bloc, the Alliance of Sahel States. Now, they have grown closer to Russia for military support and have pushed to reduce influence from former colonial powers. Mahama, who has also formerly been the chair of ECOWAS, has been seen as a familiar and trusted face in the region. The Ghanaian president helped to resolve the 2016 Gambian political crisis. And now
All right, you can watch the rest of that video. But this video, this video is the one I want to show you that pretty much overall is what happened in the visit. And basically, like I said, the president of Ghana basically pumped fake on ECOWAS.
In a bold and unexpected move, Ghana's newly elected president, John Mahama, has left ECOWAS leadership in shock with a dramatic policy shift following his visit to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the three nations that broke away from ECOWAS, accusing it of serving foreign interests and instead forming the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. To fully grasp the weight of this development, we must rewind to just a week prior. Before embarking on his tour of the Sahel nations, Mahama met with Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara, who urged him to engage with the breakaway states in an attempt to reintegrate them into ECOWAS. Mahama, appearing diplomatic, told Ouattara to exercise patience as he sought a way to work with them until they returned to constitutional democracy. Yet, what followed was anything but an attempt to bring these countries back into the ECOWAS fold. On Saturday, March 8th, 2025, President Mahama landed in Bamako, where he held talks with Mali's leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta. In a significant declaration, Mahama stated that ECOWAS and AES could coexist without interference. To cement this position, he signed agreements with Mali to open an Accra-Bamako trade corridor, allowing Mali to import essential goods through Ghana's ports. His diplomatic offensive continued the next day, March 9th, in Niamey, where he met with Niger's General Abdurrahmane Tiani. There, the two leaders signed an economic partnership focusing on security cooperation, unimpeded trade, and regional stability. Mahama emphasized the importance of recognizing AES and strengthening joint counterterrorism efforts, arguing that the threat of terrorism is not just a Sahelian problem, but one that also affects Ghana and the broader West African region. The final stop on Mahama's tour was Ouagadougou on March 10th, where he met with the young and fiery Captain Ibrahim Traore. Here, Mahama proposed opening a daily Accra-Ouagadougou-Accra flight and constructing an oil and gas pipeline to facilitate trade, given Burkina Faso's current exclusion from Ivorian ports. Traore agreed, marking a major victory for both nations, while Côte d'Ivoire found itself on the losing end. Our objective is to facilitate the free movement of goods and people and ensure the seamless transit of Burkina Faso's merchandise through the Ghana corridor, Mahama declared. In the end, Mahama did not bring AES back into ECOWAS. Instead, he secured economic partnerships and a shared security vision with the breakaway states, directly contradicting Ouattara's wishes. So, the burning question remains, Did President Mahama fool Alassane Ouattara? Oh, he most certainly did. If the Ivorian satrap Ouattara played the fool, Mahama proved himself the master strategist. He understands that geopolitics is not just about loyalty to outdated alliances. It is about securing tangible benefits for the people of Ghana and the region. Unlike Ouattara, who remains shackled to external influences, Mahama has demonstrated that African nations can forge their own paths, where business and politics are wisely separated when necessary. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. Mahama's bold pivot may signal the dawn of a new West African geopolitical order, one not dictated by Paris, Washington, or Brussels, but by Accra, Bamako, Niamey, and Ouagadougou. Before we continue, hit that like and subscribe buttons. So now let us dig deeper to uncover the full implications of this power shift. Across the vast and vibrant tapestry of Africa, a seismic shift is reverberating through the Sahel, sending ripples of hope and defiance to every corner of the continent. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger formally severed ties with the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, a regional bloc long heralded as a beacon of unity and economic integration in West Africa. In its place, these three nations, led by revolutionary military juntas, have forged the alliance of Sahel states, AES, a bold new confederation rooted in sovereignty, self-determination, and a rejection of neo-colonial shackles. For many Africans, this move is not merely a geopolitical realignment. It is a clarion call for the liberation of the continent from external domination and the reassertion of African agency. Yet, as ECOWAS leaders like Ivory Coast's President Alassane Ouattara push figures like Ghana's President John Mahama to engage these nations, a curious twist emerges. Mahama, despite his diplomatic visits, refrains from demanding their return to ECOWAS. Is this a sign of genuine Pan-African respect for their choice? Or is ECOWAS under pressure from France orchestrating a subtle campaign to reel them back into the fold? The answers lie in the hearts of Africans who see the AES as a long overdue stand against a compromised system. The decision by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to exit ECOWAS has ignited celebrations not only in the streets of Ouagadougou, Bamako, and Niamey, but also in the minds of Africans from Lagos to Nairobi, Cairo to Cape Town. For too long, ECOWAS has been perceived as a tool of Western interests, particularly those of France, the former colonial master whose influence still looms large over West Africa. The bloc's response to the coups that swept these nations between 2020 and 2023, imposing crippling sanctions, threatening military intervention, and demanding a return to civilian rule, reeked of hypocrisy to many. While ECOWAS preached democracy, it turned a blind eye to the failures of civilian governments plagued by corruption, insecurity, and subservience to foreign powers. The juntas, led by figures like Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Mali's Colonel Assimi Goïta, and Niger's General Abdourahmane Chiani, have tapped into a deep well of frustration, promising to prioritize the needs of their people over the dictates of external actors. For Pan-Africanists, this exit is a triumph of self-reliance. The AES represents a rejection of the neo-colonial framework that has kept Africa tethered to the whims of Paris, Washington, and their proxies in regional bodies like ECOWAS. In Burkina Faso, Traoré's expulsion of French troops and his embrace of local solutions to combat jihadist insurgencies have inspired a generation weary of foreign military bases dotting the continent. In Mali, the shift toward partnerships with Russia and other non-Western powers signals a break from the suffocating grip of France's Operation Barkhane, which many argue exacerbated rather than resolved insecurity. Niger's expulsion of French uranium companies and its demand for fairer resource control echo the cries of Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara, heroes whose visions of economic independence were snuffed out by imperial machinations. Across Africa, social media platforms buzz with hashtags like #AESRising and #Africa4Africans as citizens hail the trio's courage to chart a path free from the old guard's playbook. The economic implications further fuel this enthusiasm. ECOWAS, with its $702 billion market and visa-free travel, was once a symbol of regional unity. But for landlocked Sahel states, the benefits were uneven, often favouring coastal giants like Nigeria and Ivory Coast, while leaving nations like Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger economically marginalised. The AES's plans for a common passport, joint military force and localised trade networks promise a system tailored to the Sahel's unique needs, arid landscapes, nomadic traditions, and a shared struggle against terrorism. Africans see this as a model for regional cooperation that doesn't sacrifice sovereignty on the altar of globalization, a sentiment echoed by scholars like Dr. Amina Diallo of Senegal's Cheikh Anta Diop University, who told this correspondent, "The AES is proof that Africa can build its own institutions, free from the blueprints of colonial architects." Yet, as the AES gains traction, ECOWAS leaders scramble to salvage their crumbling bloc. Ivory Coast's President Alassane Ouattara, alongside Nigeria's Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been vocal in urging Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to reconsider their exit. Ouattara's March 6, 2025 plea alongside
All
Ghana's
right,
John Mahama
those two are huge puppets. And you go watch the rest of this video. It's a 22-minute video. I wish to play it, but just out of the respect for everyone's time, you should watch the rest of it on your own. It basically gives a overview of all these developments. And again, it's huge for Ghana to open its borders to the AES because, again, as the gentleman in the video said, the AES, those 3 states, were landlocked, meaning they're not by a port or by any water. But now Ghana, a nation or a country that is near the sea, opened up its borders for trade and economic development and critical infrastructure. That just strengthens the AES and completely contradicts what the president of Ivory Coast wanted. So, as I said before, the president of Ghana is playing chess, not checkers, and I believe that he will see other nations. I believe the next nation to leave ECOWAS is Togo. He'll see that Ghana should probably leave ECOWAS as well because the bloc is crumbling and it's based in colonialism, and the leaders, Tinubu and the Ivory Coast president, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, they still want to hold on to antiquated or old ideologies of the West, and they are just in they're just in those roles as puppets and mouthpieces for the West. And the AES is all about results and helping their people, stabilizing their borders from the same people who said they would stop at ECOWAS. All the insurgencies and military terrorism has been proven that it was sponsored by the French and Western entities. Why would they continue to stay in the bloc? They decided to come together, culturally engaged, and saying, hey, we need to do something about protecting our borders. Then once we protect our borders, we could trade amongst each other to help strengthen our economic development. And they are doing that through business, as they are doing it with Ghana, and business as well as getting rid of foreign entities that want access to their minerals, strategic minerals that those same Western countries can't get in their own countries. And they've reviewed these different partnerships and are saying these partnerships don't benefit our people. We need more stake in our own resources. We need to develop our own infrastructure to procure and to sell those same minerals so we could get more equity and stake in our own industries. And basically, and again, if you haven't been watching Exploring the Motherland, Mali has renegotiated access to its mines and its gold mines with Barrick. Niger completely kicked out and stopped the mining company Orano, another French company, from doing business in its country. Just, examples that you could look up to, give you the scope of what's happening in the global shifting of relationships in the continent and everywhere else. Everything is coming together as prophesized in that book. And I just hope that all of this information is inspiring and is educational and is, edifying, and is letting you all know what's happening and what is, prophesized to happen, or what is, predicted to happen, as the West is being shut out and Africa is getting stronger and is, breaking the chains of colonialism and imperialism. Okay, that was a long-winded outro, but nonetheless, everyone, that's all I have. Enjoy the rest of your day and your Shabbat, and I'm out. Shabbat Shalom.